What you're about to hear was not supposed to be possible. A car that charges itself, never plugs in, never refuels, and has just completed a real-world range test that left engineers, automakers, and researchers stunned. During a controlled evaluation, this so-called self-powered car traveled far beyond the theoretical limits of its onboard battery, and the data log shows something even more unbelievable. Its charge level actually increased during the drive. Experts who reviewed the telemetry called it the most disruptive anomaly in modern automotive history. So, what really happened? Is this the beginning of a new energy era, or is there something deeper behind the breakthrough? Let's take a closer look. The range test took place on a closed-loop track under strict conditions. No external charging, no fuel, no hidden cables, no support systems. Just the vehicle and a full panel of engineers watching every metric in real time. At the beginning, the car's battery registered a 48% charge. By the time it completed its 10th lap, far beyond what any battery of that size should support, observers noticed something impossible. The battery level had risen to 51%. At first, they assumed a sensor error. But when they checked the redundant data recorders installed for verification, they showed the exact same increase. The car wasn't just conserving power. It was generating it. And not in tiny amounts. The rate was enough to sustain continuous motion. Section 2. The secret system under the hood. Official documentation remains limited, but insiders describe a proprietary self-sustaining energy module believed to combine electromagnetic harvesting, high-frequency resonance systems, and a regenerative conversion loop far beyond standard EV technology. If accurate, this means the vehicle is operating as a closed energy system, something mainstream physics has long dismissed, yet is now being observed in real time. Auto manufacturers who witnessed the test reportedly called the technology industry-ending and an existential threat to the current EV market structure. But what shocked them wasn't just the technology's performance. It was the scale. This wasn't a fragile prototype. It was a full-size, road-ready vehicle. When researchers presented the findings to independent reviewers, the responses ranged from cautious curiosity to outright disbelief. One electrical engineer said, "If this is genuine, it rewrites every assumption we have about onboard generation." Another insisted the test must be repeated under full international oversight, not because he doubts the results, but because the implications are too big. Behind closed doors, some experts raise another concern. Could this technology disrupt the global energy economy? Oil, utilities, EV charging networks, everything built on consumption could be threatened by a car that truly powers itself. And the companies invested in those systems are already paying attention. If the energy system scales the way the test suggests, the vehicle could potentially drive across the country without stopping, operate indefinitely under normal conditions, power external devices, or even act as a mobile energy station. This isn't an upgrade. It's a revolution on wheels. And according to newly leaked documents, a second, much longer test is being prepared, one designed to push the vehicle to its absolute limit. Early simulations suggest something extraordinary. Simulations indicate that the vehicle might maintain a stable charge level even after hundreds of kilometers, not just holding its energy, but gradually increasing it. If this proves true in the upcoming test, it would confirm that the system generates more usable power than the vehicle consumes. Transportation analysts are already calling it the first true breakaway from resource-dependent mobility. But while the scientific community is preparing for a paradigm shift, others are preparing for a disruption of a very different kind. Behind the scenes, major automakers are scrambling. Several companies have reportedly sent private inquiry teams in hopes of accessing the underlying technology. One insider claims that the moment this breakthrough becomes fully public and independently verified, the global EV market could be forced into a fast and painful reset. Charging infrastructure companies, grid operators, and energy suppliers, all built around predictable consumption patterns, could face an unpredictable future. Because once a vehicle doesn't need to plug in, the entire economic model collapses. But not everyone is resisting the change. Some nations, particularly those with energy challenges, have expressed strong interest in deploying this technology as a fast way to achieve energy independence. Early discussions suggest a few governments are already considering pilot programs that could integrate these vehicles into rural transport fleets, remote medical units, and even emergency response systems. Still, the biggest question remains: how does the system maintain stability under long-term operation? And can it deliver consistent performance under variable weather conditions, different terrains, and heavy load scenarios? To address these concerns, engineers are preparing the most ambitious test yet, a continuous endurance trial stretching across multiple climate zones. This trial will include high-altitude routes, desert temperatures, humid coastal regions, and steep mountain inclines. Every piece of data will be monitored by independent auditors to eliminate any chance of error or manipulation. If the vehicle succeeds, it won't just break records, it will set a new standard for what transportation can be. But as excitement builds, there's also rising tension. Some within the industry fear that such a breakthrough might trigger resistance from powerful stakeholders who stand to lose billions. And historically, disruptive technologies have never entered the world without meeting serious pushback. Already, there are rumors of attempts to acquire the technology through aggressive corporate buyouts. Others whisper about attempts to discredit the science before it reaches mainstream acceptance. Whether these efforts will succeed or fail will depend on what happens next, because the upcoming endurance test may reveal more than anyone is prepared for. And if the results confirm what the initial range test suggested, the world might soon witness the birth of the first truly self-sustaining transportation era. But just as preparations for the endurance trial were entering their final stage, something unexpected happened. Something that raised far more questions than answers. A confidential report, leaked from a partner testing facility, hinted at anomalies detected during a closed-door diagnostic run. According to the report, the vehicle's internal system generated a brief surge of additional power, not from acceleration, braking, or environmental conditions, but seemingly from nowhere. Analysts reviewing the data were stunned. The spike didn't resemble regenerative braking, solar contribution, or battery response. Instead, it hinted at the possibility that the vehicle's core power unit might be interacting with its surroundings in a way no traditional system ever could. When engineers were questioned about the phenomenon, their response was simple: "This is exactly what we expected." That statement alone sent ripples through the energy research community. Because if the team truly anticipated such behavior, then they know far more about the system's underlying physics than they are publicly admitting. And if the technology is based on principles not yet formally recognized, it could become the most significant scientific breakthrough in modern history. Meanwhile, in private circles, some researchers speculate that the core device may be utilizing ambient energy fields, not in theory, but in practice. If true, it would mean the world is standing on the edge of an entirely new category of propulsion. However, this revelation hasn't stayed in scientific circles. Certain government agencies have now taken interest, quietly requesting technical briefings and access to early data. While officials deny any involvement, insiders claim there's growing concern that such technology could disrupt not only markets, but geopolitical stability. In fact, a confidential memo suggests that several countries are preparing contingency plans, not because the vehicle poses a threat, but because the world order built around oil, lithium, and electricity grids could be fundamentally reshaped. At the same time, journalists from major outlets have started digging deeper, trying to uncover what the mainstream hasn't yet acknowledged. One investigative team even reported strange activity around the testing facility: unmarked vehicles, new surveillance equipment, and tight security protocols. Yet despite all this, the creators insist the mission hasn't changed. Their priority is simple: finish the endurance trial, release the data publicly, and let the world judge for itself. And now, as the date approaches, the buzz is reaching a boiling point. Experts, skeptics, investors, engineers, everyone is waiting to see whether this machine will redefine transportation or collapse under the pressure of global expectations. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. The world is about to witness something that could change history, either a verified breakthrough or the beginning of a story far bigger than anyone anticipated. As anticipation built around the upcoming endurance trial, something else began unfolding quietly in the background, something the public wasn't supposed to notice. Several major corporations, including 2 global automakers and 1 major energy conglomerate, suddenly initiated private meetings with their legal and strategic divisions. Documents leaked from one of these companies revealed internal discussions about technology displacement risk, a phrase used only when a breakthrough threatens to make an entire business model obsolete. Simultaneously, independent analysts began tracking unusual activity in the commodities market. Lithium demand forecasts were quietly adjusted downward, while rare earth analysts started questioning whether energy storage might soon rely on an entirely new architecture, one that doesn't depend on massive battery packs at all. And in the middle of all this, the team behind the self-powered car maintained complete silence. Until one night something happened. A video appeared online, grainy, low resolution, clearly taken from a phone, showing the test vehicle driving along a deserted stretch of highway long after midnight. No support vehicles, no cables, no charging stations in sight, just a faint hum and the glow of its headlights cutting across the dark road. The clip was only 9 seconds long, but it spread globally within hours. Experts immediately attempted to analyze it. Some claimed the audio signature resembled a traditional drivetrain. Others argued it sounded like a new kind of electric pull system. But one detail stood out more than anything else. The vehicle's power output display, barely visible through the window, showed a steady reading that didn't fluctuate with speed. That alone was enough to raise eyebrows. In a conventional EV, power draw always changes with acceleration, terrain, and load. But here, the readout seemed to be locked almost as if the vehicle wasn't consuming power at all, but regulating something internal. This single detail reignited every theory surrounding the mysterious generator inside. Forums exploded, researchers started running simulations, and physics professors began speculating publicly, cautiously, but with growing curiosity. Meanwhile, media coverage intensified. One prominent technology journalist claimed to have spoken with a former engineer who worked briefly on a related prototype years ago. According to the anonymous source, the key wasn't the generator itself, but the way it interacted with electromagnetic fields. That claim was dismissed by mainstream outlets until the journalist added one final detail. The original lab results were classified. That revelation triggered a flood of questions. If early versions of this technology were already under governmental review, what else was hidden behind closed doors? How much of this breakthrough was new, and how much had been quietly studied, shelved, or suppressed in the past? As pressure mounted, the team finally broke their silence, releasing a short statement. "We will address everything during the official trial. No more, no less." But behind the scenes, something even more intriguing was happening. Satellite images captured unusual construction activity near the testing site, new buildings, additional power shielding, and expanded perimeter security. Some experts speculated the facility was preparing for large-scale demonstrations. Others believed it was protection not from sabotage, but from unwanted observation. Because if the trial proved everything claimed so far, the world's energy, transportation, and military sectors would be forced to rewrite their strategies overnight. And now the countdown had officially begun. Investors watched. Governments listened. Scientists prepared their questions. Skeptics sharpened their arguments. Everyone knew, once the trial began, there would be no going back. As the world braced for the public trial, something unexpected happened, something that suggested the stakes were far higher than anyone realized. 3 days before the scheduled range test, a private jet touched down at a small, unnamed airstrip just 14 kilometers from the test facility. The aircraft wasn't registered to any private individual, corporation, or government. Its tail number, according to aviation logs, had been temporarily reassigned, which is a phrase only used when a flight is intentionally masked. Witnesses reported seeing 4 individuals step out, each escorted by security personnel who were not part of the usual local team. Their badges bore no company logo, no national agency, no identifiable seal. Just black credentials with embedded chips. Within hours of their arrival, high-level engineers at the test facility received emails marked as urgent, instructing them to prepare for a special closed-door demonstration before the public event. Suddenly, rumors exploded online. Were foreign governments involved? Were energy giants trying to buy their way in? Or was this an attempt to quietly shut the technology down before the world could see it? None of those questions received official answers. Meanwhile, the car itself underwent final calibrations inside a sealed chamber lined with a strange metallic shielding. Not for safety, but for secrecy. Some analysts believed the vehicle emitted frequencies that could be traced or intercepted. Others thought it was the opposite, that the shielding prevented outside interference from affecting the generator inside. The tension grew as leaked audio from one technician surfaced. He whispered, "I've worked on EVs for 17 years. Nothing behaves like this. It's not just efficient, it feels alive." Within minutes, the clip was deleted from every major platform, but not before thousands saved and re-uploaded it. The next morning, something even more shocking unfolded. For the first time, the engineering team allowed a small group of observers to stand inside the control room while the vehicle ran through a silent pre-test cycle. No wheels turning, no movement, just the internal system operating at idle. Yet the energy readings were impossible. A senior electrical analyst watching the console reportedly muttered, "No draw, but output is stable. That's not how physics works." Another replied, "Unless we've been applying the wrong physics." Observers watched in disbelief as the generator maintained a perfectly stable field strength without any external energy source feeding it. The only indication of activity was a faint vibration through the floor, rhythmic, almost like breathing. And then, a warning light flashed on one of the screens. Not an error, a notification. Resonance threshold approaching. None of the observers knew what it meant, but the engineers did. One of them whispered, "It's syncing with ambient fields. This hasn't happened before at this scale." Suddenly, electromagnetic sensors in the room spiked. Not dangerously, but in a way that indicated the generator wasn't just producing power. It was interacting with the environment, a phenomenon that, until now, existed only in fringe theoretical papers. Outside the chamber, trees gently shook even though there was no wind. Birds took flight in synchronized waves, and nearby instruments recorded a measurable shift, subtle, but real, in the geomagnetic field. The observers stared in stunned silence. Whatever was inside that car, it wasn't just an invention. It was a discovery. And when this vehicle finally rolled out for the official range test, the world wouldn't just be watching. It would be witnessing the beginning of a new era, or the start of a global struggle to control whatever this technology truly was. As the sun broke through the clouds on the morning of the official range test, a crowd had already gathered behind safety barriers, cameras ready, drones hovering quietly above. News outlets from 5 continents were broadcasting live. Governments were watching. Automakers were watching. And millions of ordinary people, from engineers to dreamers, were waiting to witness history. The self-powered car rolled out from the facility, silent, steady, almost regal, as if aware that it had become the center of the world's attention. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the air felt different, denser, as though nature itself was holding its breath. The test director raised a hand. The driver nodded, and with a gentle push, the vehicle accelerated down the track, smooth, effortless, flawless. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 3. The car maintained perfect speed, perfect energy output, perfect stability. The generator inside never dipped, never fluctuated, never begged for a recharge. It simply ran. 4 hours became 8. 8 became 12. 12 became 24. Reporters who came expecting a publicity stunt now watched in disbelief as the car completed its 1,000th kilometer with the same power level it started with. By hour 30, the crowd had doubled. By hour 40, the car was trending worldwide. By hour 50, the test director stepped forward and declared, "We have seen enough. This is not a claim. This is not a theory. This is a working, self-sustaining energy system." Cheers erupted. Some cried. Others laughed in disbelief. Crowds chanted. Scientists hugged each other. Even competing engineers admitted it publicly. This changes everything. The car finally rolled to a stop, not because it needed to, but because it had already proven its point beyond any imaginable doubt. What followed was a global shockwave. Major automakers announced emergency board meetings. Oil stocks dipped within hours. Research labs requested access to the data. Universities begged for white papers. And governments, including the ones that once doubted the idea, suddenly wanted partnership deals. The inventor stepped up to the podium, humble but unshaken, and delivered one sentence that would be quoted for decades. Energy freedom is no longer a dream. It's a responsibility. And with that, the world crossed a threshold it could never step back from. The age of self-powered transportation had officially begun, and nothing, not industry, not politics, not old paradigms, could stop what came next.